Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning or evening, depending on where you're watching from. Great to be here again. Just give us a few seconds and then we'll be kicking off shortly. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here once again. Thank you all very much for joining. Feel free to drop your name in the chat. Our usual weekly event is about to begin. So just a quick reminder that this is a recorded session. So let's all respect each other online. Feel free to come off mute if you want to chat. Also, feel free to engage in the chat window today. This is a safe learning zone, and today we are going to be going through one of the applications which exists as part of a Microsoft suite. You might find this in things like Microsoft Business Professional, but it actually is free to a point of entry, and we'll guide you through that as we go through today. Hopefully you can see me now. Yep, that's good. All the video's good. This is me. You can find out more about me if you want to online on LinkedIn at your leisure. But today we are talking about Viva Learning. Very brief sort of overview today, where we're going to be using some of the guided learning materials. So this is a little bit in terms of preparation. This is a recorded demo that we're going through, but hopefully you will find out through this how easy it is to start thinking about your own learning and development provision. And I want to take just a little bit of time at the outset of this call just to talk through that at a high level. Now, it wouldn't be one of these business success events if we weren't talking about things like Copilot. And that's exactly what I've used here to generate a Venn diagram. And there's the prompts you can see that I've used to quickly create a picture today. But I thought this was important because Viva Learning, which forms part of a suite of Viva applications, which are all employee engagement applications by Microsoft. And as I said, they exist as part and parcel of other licensing subscriptions, such as Business Premium, etc. There are premium levels to Viva Learning as well. And if you're a Teams user, you can click on the three dots on your ribbon and type Viva Learning, and it's likely that you'll find it. But finding it is not sufficient enough, really, because we can all switch on some IT, and the real value from any technology comes out of the application of it. And it is prudent to think about your application of Viva Learning. And this is, typically learning development professionals, part of people teams, compliance teams as well. Because when we think about this from an organizational perspective, you can probably categorize this, and hopefully this resonates for you, but feel free to challenge this. into three main areas. So the compliance things, the things that we need to do, whether that's ISO 27001, cyber essential security, health and safety, risk assessment. So there's that piece of learning, which is important that we keep up to date so that people are able to apply themselves in a way which manages company risk, essentially, or institution, organization risk, similar things. Strategic learning and development as well. So, okay, compliance is good, but where are we going? Where are we going as an organization? And what do we need to do in terms of our personal growth journeys? Because people still the strongest assets in many organizations around the world. What do we do? What do we need to do in terms of the time which we make available to ourselves to learn? What do we do in terms of that growth in order for us to align? Now, I don't typically see a lot of this going on. I haven't seen a lot of this going on in my career, but it is super, super important. And if you are clever with it, then you can align that to the types of skills that you will need as an organization. And if we think about this in a technology sense, let's not talk about Microsoft for a change. Let's maybe talk about Amazon Cloud. You know, a lot of these vendors, similar sorts of principles, but you might be studying an education to be an architect, or maybe it's to support your IT function, or maybe it's to support your sales function. And there will be a suite of different tools out there which you can align just from a technology perspective. But then we think about actually not just the technical skills, perhaps, but the people-centered skills that we need as well. Now, there are some great frameworks out there. One that I particularly like is from the Institute of Consulting, or the Chartered Management Institute, and they have lots of different positive indicators across what shapes of leadership, management, and those sorts of things, negotiating skills, conflict management skills, all of those sorts of things go into making us well-rounded individuals. And none of us are perfect, and we can all improve in certain areas. And when we have something like that to think through, and it is implemented in a emotionally intelligent way, then we can get some real success. And that real success sort of hopefully feeds into your culture of the workers and their personal growth journeys. Because the reality is, whilst we're all sat at work doing things, some of our greatest learning comes from those conversations around the office cooler. And, you know, going down the street and you bump into someone, or you get a little fleeting piece of inspiration from a magazine. All of those sorts of things go into the learning experience, and you might have like voluntary roles as well. And you know, if we think about that personal growth, it can certainly be brought into the thinking around the people in our business. So before we get onto this demo, though, I want to give you this model because it's really good. This is typically from a development context, so like an international development context, but I think it works really well for learning and development in terms of thinking through what success looks like. You can apply this actually to all sorts of projects. It's a really good thing, because essentially, as you can see, and this is taken from toolsfordevelopment.org, but if you Google this or use your other favorite search engines, log frame analysis, or a logical framework, then you can probably find some templates here. But simple way of structuring specific, measurable, achievable results that are targeted, SMART objectives, essentially, where we can think about the project, we can think about the indicators. So what does success look like? How can we manage, how can we measure and evaluate whether success has happened? The means of that verification, you know, it could be maybe that we're going out for surveys, using Viva Glint or something like that to do engagement pulse surveys of the people in the wider organization to find out what they're thinking. Perhaps it's looking at the volumes of transactions, the reduction in time, all sorts of things. But you can see here, there's some examples on a lot higher sort of global scale. But you can really start to think about this in terms of your application for Viva Learning, I think, because if you switch it on, as I said at the beginning of this session, you'll get some value, but you'll get the most value if you think about it in the context of, okay, we need a communications campaign to communicate what we're actually trying to achieve by switching this on, how we would like people to use it, what is acceptable in its use, because you will need to think about this in terms of changing cultures, I think, to get the best value out of it. And I come across this fantastic term during the week, and it was called, I hope I pronounced this correctly, but nemawashi. And it was a Japanese concept of change and how change isn't instant. You know, we have like change consultants and these sorts of things. It's not instant. It does require this sort of gradual little changes over time. And I guess that the concept which I got from it was, it's almost like, you know, gardening a bonsai or something. It's the small tweaks that you make to shape it into a particular direction that you're going. And that, I think, is quite a useful concept, actually, when we're thinking about change in a learning and development sense, because people's personal journeys will be going at different speeds, but you will need a particular speed in order to go wherever you are deciding that you want to go with this. And people may need different learning materials, as we saw at the start. So thinking about the categorization of your information and the types of knowledge impacts that it might have on people, and how you can, you know, bring all of that together. And that is all I'm going to say on that at the moment. Any questions before we start moving into demo mode? And I put on my hat as a system administrator today. I'm going to take you through some of this guiding learning material in the background, and show you how easy it is to start to set some of this up in the solution. All good? For all good, we will move on. Let me take you through this next slide. Let me just bring a couple of windows into view here. Okay, so this is our little environment that we're in. We are in here, the admin center, as a global administrator. Essentially, there are many different roles within the Microsoft Admin Center, and there's some best practice around how you set those up in your organization, which isn't anything to do with this chat. It's just something to be aware of. Now, we can go through. We can specify in Viva Learning the different types of content which we can bring forwards into our academy, or even just to surface to individuals organically to say, look, these things are available. Now, these are paid content providers by and large, but not all of them. So things like Microsoft Learn is free, and there's some incredible stuff there. There's actually a load of free content as well on edX. So it's worth having a think about, you know, what is appropriate as opposed to just sort of ticking left, right, and center, I would say. But a key one to call out here, I would say, is around SharePoint, because you can bring in your own content. If you buy like SCORM compliant learning materials, you're hosting them on modern SharePoint, then this could also be a way of surfacing that for you. It does point out here in these notes, as you can see, you might need a LinkedIn Learning subscription, and you can get those sorts of things direct from LinkedIn themselves. So yeah, we just go through here. We can easily select a number of different providers, and here we can then bring in SharePoint, as I said, and in this context here, we're just bringing through our demo SharePoint into this. Here is our demo SharePoint. So this is modern SharePoint. You might recognize this if you have deployed modern SharePoint, or if you have deployed Teams and you create a team site, SharePoint automatically generates things on the back of it. And can't remember who I've told this story to, but it's my son asked for some help with his homework a few nights ago, and I was like, he said, I can't find it. I was like, can't find it. So I logged in, and all of the content is managed on SharePoint, and I couldn't find it in fairness. So I let him off on that one. But I think what happened at that school is everyone got really excited about that, and they'd all gone off and they created their own SharePoint sites per subject area, and they've all been very creative, and it was lovely, but not very good for the students, because couldn't find anything, even at that age, which was the teenage age, secondary school age. So it's always worth thinking a little bit around how you're using SharePoint, if you are using that to complement your learning and development journey. But certainly there is a lot of value in it, because the thing that we've got on screen at the moment is a template, and there's lots of templates there. And if you think about this in terms of blending into your employee experience piece, there's ways that you can stitch this together. I won't go into all the details, but there are ways of doing it. Anyway, we've got this slide content list. We can see our learning app content repository in here. We can then bring new content into this folder, and you might want to give this some thought in terms of the labels that you give it, the security access. Some of those things play into these journeys as well. Now there are a number of different features there. As I say, you can think around this in terms of the security permissions, and what is going on around those, and perhaps you need to add in more permissions for certain content. Certain people might need to see certain things, and you can bring in here some of your user groups here. So you might want to be doing a little bit of thinking around that from an M365 administration point of view. But we could simply add that in. That then forms part of the corporate, I guess, or the organizational learning materials, and we can bring those sorts of things through into creating new feature sets as part of our academy, giving that different end dates, finding courses that are appropriate to a feature set. And there's a lot of free content on Learn, and I think this is something which we probably don't do enough in all organizations, I would say, because we've all moved from it's Hotmail. Once upon a time there was Outlook, and there's a new version of Outlook, and there's M365 Outlook, and then even Microsoft employees, I read the other day, they're a bit confused about the number of Outlooks they've got. But in here, you've got lots of free content, and a good example of that is around Copilot at the moment. If you are starting to think about implementing Copilot in your organization, then you can put content in here, and it's something to think about in terms of like your rollout strategy. But it could be how to use the latest features of Outlook, because there's certain things that we kind of are forced to do in a way, because the software keeps updating. But we go through there. We've got our feature set coming through, and we can take a look at that to see what it looks like in terms of the home view, where it's pinning it. And this is the view that you would get if you were a learner, which we are here. We're a learner with the admin hat on, and that's what we'll go back into in a second. But if you followed what I said earlier and just clicking on those three dots, you can probably add in Viva Learning yourself, and you'll see things like this with information on it. It just won't be as rich as it could be with the full set of functionality, but certainly a great entry point. And you can support that entry point with communications campaign and those sorts of things in order to get it going, whilst you're building your learning paths, your feature sets, and thinking about your structure in the background, I would say. So here we've got some great, I know it's not flavor of the year at the moment, but some great DEI training. But fundamentally, you know, I think back when I was at the Metropolitan Police Service, and there was diversity training. It wasn't called diversity training. It was basically training about how to treat everyone like a human being and understand which perspective and lens that they were coming on in the world. And I still think that's important in this day and age. I still think that's important. And I hope that many of us recognize that too. So, right, here we go in here. We can just go and click through. We can add images to this. We can add descriptions on the content, bring new course material in. And this is, I just said, pre-canned content, really. This isn't us thinking, right. And I do get, you know, efficiency things around any operation, not just DEI, but as an example, if you want consistent learning materials around DEI and you want to make savings, then you can use the LinkedIn learning materials. And you've got pre-packaged materials here, which you can bring into your experience. Now, that can be used for all sorts of things, but this could be materials around Outlook. As I said, it could be materials around Copilot or any of the other elements of the Microsoft suite. Now, as I said, we are using pre-canned content today from Microsoft in this particular demo. But there is lots of other things in there. From a people-centered point of view, the example that we've got around unconscious bias is quite important, because we can't necessarily find the best and strongest people in the world if we are filtering people through certain lenses of our own and not measuring people in an equitable way around this. So, you know, there's things to be aware of around best practices, which, again, if you link back to those competency frameworks from the Institute of Consulting, Chartered Management Institute, you'll find things like this. But here we got some examples just going through this course, and I will click through just a few of these other slides now, so you can see how that has been brought together, essentially. So we've got a learning path, we've got feature sets in here, and once we've published all of that out to our organization, then our learners, quite often our workers, they could be frontline workers who are just using the Teams app, maybe on their phone, or they could be people that are on laptops and those sorts of things. So that gets surfaced to the learners. But again, if we're just surfacing this and going, right, well, that's it, it's all good, then we're probably not going to get the engagement that we perhaps might be able to achieve with a complementary communications campaign around this. And actually what we are trying to achieve by switching some of these things on. And what you will see, which are quite useful tools in the background of things like Viva to help us on that journey, is things like, from a normal working week, how many hours should workers be setting aside for learning? You know, what is the acceptable boundary? And then what Viva does is it weaves it in to its communications around this, and says, oh, remind, just, you know, remember to set aside 2 hours a week for learning, and those sorts of things. So it can really help you in terms of setting the scene around all of this. There's little tweaks you can do. So you might not want that Microsoft logo. You can put in your own logo around it, certain security permissions and things that you can set up. But I've gone through my career enabling lots of people departments, lots of human resources departments. And quite often, many people, including myself, actually, when I've been in HR roles, looking for a learning management system. And Microsoft haven't had a learning management system. And this, I don't know. I don't know if you can call it a learning management. I think you can. I think you can call this a learning management system, but it's very different. It's very different. This isn't SCORM compliant learning. This is something subtle. There's something subtly different around it. We're able to build out the structured pathways. We're able to point people to organic learning and that sort of thing. But it's staying one step away from the capture of the SCORM compliant measurements. So that embedding in your PDFs and your current practices, there's still a need for that. There's still a need to construct the content of a course. If you want to package things this way, this is about the paths and the roads which lead people in their experience to all that content, I would say. So this is about, okay, these groups of people need to be doing this learning material. We're going to wrap it up in this way, but we want to bring in these providers as well. And more importantly, we want this to look and feel like a single experience, because it's all going to be in teams. And it's all wrapped up in here, and it can be complemented with SharePoint. There is, I know there's a Microsoft partner, was LMS 365. It is now called, this is dreadful. There's something beginning with Z. Travis will be unhappy. They've recently changed their names. It will come to me. It might even be on the front of my laptop. I'm sure I've got one of the stickers on it. But it used to be LMS 365. It's built on modern SharePoint, and they do the SCORM compliant thing. But again, it's around the hosting of it. And yeah, I think there's still a need for the Captivates of the world and that sort of thing if you want to package a course up. But what, of course, you will find is if you're using Microsoft Learn, that's all on there. Microsoft do all of the SCORM compliance stuff for you. You don't need to worry about it. And they've got structured pathways around all sorts of career paths, but even just general skills, as I say, that's quite useful. So thank you for your patience in listening to that. Any questions by anyone on the call? Yeah, do you want to come off mute, Liz?
Yeah, hello. What reporting can you get out of this, out of Viva Learning?
That is a very good question, and I'm not sure I have the answer for you on this call. But what I would say is that the Viva Suite is doing most of its reporting either through the apps themselves or using the Viva Insights area, which has got a lot of workforce insights. So I think it's going to depend on what you are after. But we would also find is, I can't bring this into view now, but I can certainly follow that up. In the admin center, there are a number of engagement. So you can see the uptake is from a user. People are actually, you can things like Viva Memory, Copilot, because what Microsoft are well, they're not just concerned about it, they've changed their entire strategy, is making sure that people are actually and engaging the applications people sell them, because the reality is things like Viva Learning, I mean, it's fantastic. It is really, really good. Microsoft aren't strong at advertising, I think, as some of the other vendors out there about these things. And you often get these things implemented as part of M365, as an example. We switch it on an organization, we tick the box and say we've rolled out Word, Outlook, etc. But we've missed things like this, which, you know, save us money,
Yeah.
change culture. And if they're implemented right, and it doesn't, you know, it just requires a little bit of thought in terms of the approach. But this is a great one because it is free. You know, you are getting free content in here, and even you know, forget all of the learning and development stuff. If you're an individual watching this, check it out. Have a look on that, because you might find all sorts of great things. And we've talked about EI and that, but you will find anything on there that you want. And it depends on the channels that your organization has surfaced. But if you think about this just purely from a Microsoft perspective, and you're thinking, oh, you know, I'm a bit worried getting left behind in, you know, product X, and you go on there and you in product X, and you go, oh, okay, there's this person, and you spend 10 minutes, you know, over a coffee, or tea, or whatever you want, and do a little bit of learning at a time, and that's the way. And you'll see, you know, here these are bite-sized chunks, so that's 35 minutes long. And you can create learning accounts, and there's all sorts of things on there. And just, yeah, even like thought leadership pieces can be quite useful. You see things like Harvard Business Review, some posts and things, you bring that into it. But again, I think, you know, making people feel it's acceptable to look at those sorts of things, and maybe try to create a where people chat about what they've learned, and those sorts of things are the types of things which you can bring in to your thinking, I would suggest.
Yeah. Okay. This might be more for the Microsoft Learn rather than the Viva Learn, but things like compliance that you have to do annually. Can it send reminders to a group of people that need to be compliant? I know, childcare, for example, child safety care.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ways that you can bring that together. So it's going to depend very much on the content that you've got in here. If you're using Microsoft Learn for compliance pieces around their pathways, then Microsoft Learn are going to help the learners when their accreditations. So if you are, say you're like a functional consultant or a BI person, and there is on many of those certifications a need to refresh it nowadays. Yes. And Microsoft will email, you know, the learners throughout Learn in your learning profile to say that you need to do that. You have got particular certifications internally, you know, follow a similar, then there's other solutions for that. You could use the Power Platform, you could use Dynamics HR, you could use your other HR tools and use the Power Platform in order to the alerts, and you could mix stuff up from Microsoft Graph, which underpins a lot of this information, with analytics too. So there's always a way with reporting and those sorts of things, and it often requires thinking about who the audience is, the information, and how where the information exists. Really, if it's in Microsoft, it's usually easily exposable through several technologies, and then it's like, what is the best technology to do it? So. Was that helpful?
Yes, it was. Thank you. Thank you. No, the cogs are turning, and I probably need to play to come up with more questions.
Oh, feel free to reach out if we can give any assistance. But it is one of these things that the more you think about it, the more questions you might have. So yeah, happy to help. Happy to help. But no, great questions as well. So thank you for that. Okay, that really does summarize the call. So I will just bring us back to where we were, which was on our presentation window. And just to remind you all, this is a weekly series of events. We do record each one. It goes onto our YouTube channel. You can catch up with it afterwards. We go through 4 main topic areas. So talking about Copilot, artificial intelligence. We talk about ESG, environment, social and governance, for which a lot of our people areas sort of blend into, but we've taken a particular interest in the types of things that Microsoft is doing around sustainability for cloud, that sort of thing. And our other 2 areas around modern work and people-centered solutions. So the sort of 4 main components of the types of things that we are talking about on these calls. So thank you very much for joining. And we would really love it if you could help us make a positive impact today. There is a QR code there. You can scan that on your phone and make an impact with the free tokens that we're giving you today on one of those 3 fantastic projects with our partners, Buy One, Gift One, B1, G1, an amazing organization. So thank you very much for helping us make a positive impact today. We can show you how you can get the best out of Copilot and how to safely use it with your business data. I know there is a lot of concerns out there with using all 101 tools nowadays. But with Copilot, you can really lock down within your organization and make sure it's safe. And when you do that, it can do some good things. So yesterday was a very exciting event with Bytes in London, and we were going through a promptathon. We did all sorts of things, but one of the examples that come up was the usage of Copilot to consume 200 resumes or CVs and to score those. Alarm bells are ringing in my HR head. But what they've done within this particular organization, I was absolutely astonished. It scored it, it provided it in a grid, and it was all very scary. But what they've done then is, well, actually, let's just make sure, let's run our current process of scoring, our people way of scoring. And let's face it, with that unconscious bias thing is a problem.
Yeah.
But let's do it one way. Use the Copilot results, run that in parallel and see what the deviation is. Initial result, no significant, not scientifically significant, but no significant deviation to be concerned about in their initial exploratory phases. So that, because I've been there, I'm sure a lot of us have been there, 200 CVs, how are you going to do this? Oh my goodness, am I going to miss any good people out? You know, all these things. Well, that was a game changer. And I think, yeah, when we're thinking through things like Copilot, just thinking practically, how can that really make a change in our lives, and whether that is people department or a legal department or a sales department. There's different ways of using it. That one particularly got me excited because I know from years in this area that is a problem for a lot of people. So that was really good to see.
Absolutely. I might be going on a slight tangent here, so apologies, Princess. I'm on the local Chiltern CIPD committee, and I jointly run.
You okay with that? Do you want me to stop the recording?
If you finished, or I can hold this to the end.
Let me just wrap up then, and we'll carry on chatting. Thank you very much, everyone. It's great to see you. And thanks for joining again, and look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.